Something not many people are aware of or talking about on social media regarding Starfield is that IGN actually got a 1 hour hands-on playtest of the game. More specifically, Ryan Mcaffrey, who is a member of IGN, was the one who got his hands on the 1 hour playtest. He also got to interview and speak with Todd Howard after trying the game, and was then able to share some of his thoughts and some of the questions he asked Todd Howard in an interview. I don't think many people have seen the interview from IGN, so I will post a link down in the description. As far as I can tell, this is only the second time anybody who is not an employee of Bethesda has had the ability to share their gameplay impressions on Starfield. Luckily, Ryan Mcaffrey, who was able to play about 1 hour of Starfield on Xbox Series X, had nothing but good things to say about the performance and the scope of the game. He then makes it very clear that an hour of Starfield only gave him a small taste of what one could accomplish in this game because of its expansiveness. He was able to play from the beginning of the game, as well as load several save files, jumping around what was described to him as still very early on. One of the most insightful and exciting things to hear about this game from Ryan Mcaffrey, who again is not affiliated with Bethesda in any way, is that he makes it clear that the insane scope of Starfield that was portrayed in the Starfield Direct is absolutely reflected in the gameplay and magnitude of the universe around you. He goes on to describe how it feels like a game that people will be playing for over 300 hours and still not having completed the main campaign because they were off living the life of a space pirate, building outposts across hundreds of different planets or worlds. He describes the experience of Starfield as No Man's Sky with an entire Bethesda role-playing game built on top of it. Specifically, the exploration, procedurally generated planets, and mining components of No Man's Sky, while also comprising an entire Bethesda Game Studio RPG on top of that, with all the splendor of choice making and an ever-changing interconnected story with consequences for the actions you take within the galaxy. No longer will the choices you make be contained to one planet or one specific town. Your actions will affect everyone within the galaxy, which sounds complex and might allow for an insane amount of replayability in the future. It is confirmed that Starfield is going to be a single-player only experience. There's not going to be any multiplayer or co-op aspects at all, which I think is fine. I don't think we're going to be lacking any content. There's going to be a ton of people who will never complete the main story, and for good reason. It seems like there's going to be just too many other things that aren't actually pertaining to the main story that's going to distract us. From exploring planets and finding the fauna on those worlds, to growing your armada, finding lost alien artifacts, building superstructures like a Dyson sphere. Who knows what will be possible? All I know is I think we will all have something to do in Starfield for a long time to come, because it seems like the content will really just try to do everything it can to suck you away from that main story. We heard Todd Howard describe how Starfield is really just going to be 5 games in one, and it sounds like it's basically going to be a situation where you stick to your favorite version of Starfield. Meaning for you, the game might be really about being a space pirate and seeing how much wealth you can build up. For others, maybe it'll be about outpost building and customizing your ship. I think the main story will really take a back seat for most people. Speaking of the many things to do besides the story campaign, I know one of the things Ryan Mcaffrey described that got me very excited was how there's actually going to be quite a few ways to handle ship-to-ship interaction. You can outright blow up ships and steal their scrap. You can board a ship, kill the crew, and add that ship to your fleet by having an NPC fly it home. Or you can hail a ship. This will be your dialogue option, which might allow us to interact with ships and form short-lived contracts, or perhaps acquire bounties and quests from other spaceships. This leads me to believe that space piracy, or perhaps even smuggling like Han Solo, will be an important component of building your armada and taking over the universe of Starfield. When asked by his co-hosts about space combat, Ryan Mcaffrey describes a gameplay moment where he docked with a big freighter ship and was able to go onto the ship and just shoot everyone, which literally, yes, was space piracy, stealing an entire other ship by clearing out its crew. However, while he was clearing the ship, the gravity generator wasn't fully working. So randomly, as he was walking around, the gravity would just stop. All of a sudden, he would be floating, and then the gravity would kick back in, and he'd drop back down to the ground. Ryan Mcaffrey describes using a shotgun during this gameplay segment, so when there was no gravity, he would get blasted backwards due to the absence of gravity. I could see this used on purpose as a way to clear the distance between you and an enemy in an anti-gravity situation by shooting behind you to get a boost forwards. However, Ryan stated that when the gravity drive turned back on, he would fall back down to the ground and could use the shotgun normally again. That sounds pretty awesome to me. Gravity and the gravity mechanics in Starfield seem like one of those things that look pretty interesting and cool, but I don't think we'll be able to have an opinion on it until we experience it for ourselves. It's one of those things that's going to be finicky, and we'll really need to be able to feel it ourselves before we're able to review it properly. Speaking of all the different characters in Starfield, Ryan Mcaffrey reports how the highlight of his time with Starfield was when he visited New Atlantis. He said it had a Mass Effect meets Oblivion vibe with tons of NPCs all over the place that you could talk to, and you could talk to all of them. Although, in particular Bethesda Game Studios fashion, some of those NPCs didn't have much to say, but the bright side is New Atlantis was huge and connected multiple districts with apparently a subway-like system that connected all the different districts. He said it felt like you could spend dozens of hours in this city alone, which, based off what we know about New Atlantis, you probably can spend dozens of hours just here. This is confirmed that New Atlantis is their largest city ever in terms of size, custom art, crowds, and even quests, which, if it does have the most quests ever, it means that New Atlantis has over 85 quests, beating out Vivid City from Morrowind, which was previously the highest quest count Bethesda city. Ryan Mcaffrey ends the interview by describing how he saw a ton of really cool background choices for your character. But of course, with just 1 hour, it was impossible for him to see how far-reaching those choices were in terms of the gameplay. We did, however, see quite a few interesting things pop up in terms of the recent Starfield Direct and community reactions to it. One concern that has arisen after the Starfield Direct is the minimum system requirements, which include an SSD. This is one of the first new releases that will require an SSD, and it will have a 125 gigabyte download. Make sure you have an SSD and the space for this game, otherwise the specs aren't too crazy, but the Steam requirements don't really detail things like target frame rate or even what resolution this is going for, so it's hard to read too much into it at this time. Although the biggest question a lot of people are left with now is when are we going to get more? And I think basically all of us can agree that the devs deserve a bit of a break after our 50-minute look into Starfield. So we do have QuakeCon coming up in August, and hopefully we hear something then. For more details sooner than that, I'm working on a massive video breakdown of the Starfield Direct, so make sure you get subscribed to watch that. One last thing to mention is it was revealed during the Starfield Direct that it is getting a premium edition with 5 days early access, meaning that it is literally just a little over 2 months away before many of us are able to just buy and play the game. If you own Game Pass, the upgrade for the premium edition will run you an additional $35 for the early access and DLC. For a lot of American players, this means you'll be able to play Starfield on August 31st, which is absolute insanity. Alright, that's our first hands-on look at Starfield. We got some impressions from somebody who actually got to play the game. So for more, check out the interview video below from IGN, or check out one of my other videos. Peace!